Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into one of the absolute most famous passages in human history, but we're going to look at it through a really specific, unique lens. We are treating this ancient text, Genesis chapter 1, specifically the 5th and 6th days, like a literal structural blueprint. I want you to imagine unrolling a massive, incredibly detailed schematic that lays out the construction of a complex, living ecosystem. We're going to analyze the architecture of the living world exactly as it's built in the text. I am so excited to guide you through this because, honestly, when you look past how familiar these words are and just focus on how the information is actually structured, the precision is just mind-blowing.
Our goal for this explainer is simple, but it is profound. We are going to map out the narrative sequence and the structural patterns of days 5 and 6. Now, to be clear, we aren't coming at this from some specific theological angle or trying to pick sides in modern debates, not at all. Instead, we're simply looking at what the text itself literally says. We're treating the author like a master architect, studying the blueprint to understand the logic, the flow, and the incredibly deliberate organization of this newly constructed world.
Okay, let's dive right into this by grounding ourselves in the strict two-stage chronological timeline the text gives us. The sequence we're looking at covers a very distinct process. First up, we have day 5, where the text focuses entirely on the waters and the skies, and blessing the creatures inside them. Then the timeline advances to day 6, where the focus sharply shifts to the dry land, the creation of the beasts, the creeping things, and ultimately humanity. Notice how incredibly orderly this is? The environments, the habitats, they have to be established first, and only then are they systematically populated.
Section 1. Filling the habitats, the foundation of the ecosystem.
So this is exactly where those empty structures of the earth finally begin to receive their inhabitants. The text introduces life into the world with a very specific, highly functional command. If we look at verse 22, detailing the 5th day, it says, "And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas and let birds multiply on the earth." This is the initial directive. The architect isn't just randomly dropping creatures into a void, right? The very first instruction is a literal command for biological expansion. They're designed with a built-in purpose to multiply and completely fill the specific spatial domains they were built for, the seas and the sky.
Now, as the blueprint rolls over to day 6, the land is populated, but with absolute meticulous taxonomy. The text doesn't just broadly say land animals and move on. It explicitly divides them into 3 highly specific functional categories: livestock, creeping things, and beasts of the earth. All of them share the exact same domain, the earth or the ground, but they occupy completely different functional roles within that ecosystem. This reveals a mind that heavily prioritizes taxonomy and order. Everything has its specific category, and everything has its specific place.
And just to make sure we really get that sense of order, we are hit with a massive structural repetition. In just verses 24 and 25, the text repeats the phrase "according to their kinds" or "according to its kind" over and over again, literally 5 times in just 2 sentences. You know, in literary architecture, repetition is basically a giant neon sign pointing out what's important. This isn't some chaotic, random assortment of life. It is a highly ordered, locked-in system of categorization. Every single creature is bounded by its kind, which establishes a framework of absolute biological structure.
Moving to Section 2, the image and likeness, the architectural shift.
Here we reach the absolute apex of the creation narrative, and the blueprint fundamentally changes on us. Previously, as we just saw, every single animal was grouped strictly by its biological kind. But suddenly, with the introduction of humanity in verse 26, that rigid formula is completely dropped. Man is not made according to a kind, but in our image, after our likeness. This is a massive structural deviation in the pattern of the text. It signals to the reader that humanity represents an entirely different class of creation within this blueprint.
And the text underscores this major shift by actually changing its literary style. Out of nowhere, verse 27 breaks into poetry. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Think about it. After verses upon verses of very straightforward procedural architectural prose, the author suddenly uses rhythmic, repeating, poetic triplets. You can actually feel the pacing of the text slowing down. It's deliberately forcing the reader to stop, pause, and recognize the profound significance of what is happening right here on the page.
Section 3, the mandate of dominion, installing the system managers.
Now that this totally unique entity has been created, they're handed a very specific operational manual for the world around them. This introduces a highly sequential 5-part mandate from verse 28. It starts out with basic biological existence, actually the exact same way the animals were blessed on day 5. Step 1, be fruitful. Step 2, multiply. Step 3, fill the earth. But then, it escalates dramatically for humanity. Step 4 is to subdue the earth, and Step 5 is to have dominion. The text shows this perfectly logical progression. I mean, you can't govern a system until you are present inside of it, right? So humanity has to first multiply and fill the earth before they can step up into their ultimate role of actively managing and subduing it.
But here is the crucial point. We have to clarify exactly what dominion applies to. If humanity are the system managers, what exactly are they managing? Well, based purely on the text's own internal definitions in verses 26 and 28, this authority is applied strictly and specifically to the animal kingdom. We're talking the fish of the sea, the birds of the heavens, the livestock, and every creeping thing. The blueprint does not grant humanity dominion over each other. It specifically tasks them with the oversight of those biological creatures we detailed earlier. It's a very precisely defined sphere of authority.
Section 4. Sustaining the living architecture, the supply chain. A system this complex, teeming with life, and managed by humanity requires an immense energy grid to keep it running. And according to verses 29 and 30, the original fuel source designed for this entire ecosystem was, quite frankly, a modern vegan's absolute dream, a 100% plant-based provision. The text states, "I have given you every plant yielding seed, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food." Notice that in this original schematic, there is zero predation, there is no hunting. The entire energy grid of this newly built world is powered exclusively by the vegetation growing on the surface of the earth.
And just look at the sheer thoroughness of this supply chain. Verse 30 lists out every recipient of this green plant provision: humanity, every beast of the earth, every bird of the heavens, and everything that creeps on the earth. The text summarizes it perfectly by saying everything that has the breath of life. Every single creature we've tracked through days 5 and 6 is plugged into this exact same dietary system. It's a completely unified, non-competitive food web designed to sustain the entire architecture without a single ounce of internal destruction.
Now, throughout this whole process, as these massive, complex commands for multiplication, dominion, and the food supply chain are laid out, the text uses this repeating, definitive phrase, "and it was so." You see it pop up in verse 24, you see it again in verse 30. It functions exactly like a stamp of approval on a construction blueprint. It's the textual equivalent of checking off a box on a punch list. The architect speaks the design, and the execution is immediate and flawless. The plan translates perfectly into reality. Which finally brings us to the ultimate inspection at the end of the 6th day. Verse 31 reads, "And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good." Notice the significant textual upgrade here. In the previous verses, the individual components were declared simply good. But now, once the habitats are completely filled, once the system managers are formally installed and the global supply chain is fully activated, when the entire interconnected architecture is viewed as a single functioning whole, the status is elevated to very good. The complete running system is far greater than just the sum of its individual parts.
So, we've mapped the sequence, we've seen the precise taxonomy, that beautiful poetic shift for humanity, the specific mandate of dominion, and a fully unified nonviolent supply chain. And that leaves us with a truly fascinating final thought to ponder. If the architecture of the 6th day was structurally designed to be this completely unified and very good, how does this original blueprint shape our understanding of the text's view on the living world? Because when you strip away absolutely everything else and just look closely at the foundational text, the level of brilliant, deliberate engineering is just impossible to ignore. Thank you so much for joining me as we unrolled this ancient blueprint today. Keep analyzing, keep looking closely at the structure of things, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.